I think I'm on your bill too, if you don't want to hang around. I've got you on the consent agenda.
Yeah, we're deferring.
Oh, you're deferring?
Yeah, it's got to defer.
So that one, yeah, sorry.
All right.
We've got to defer that based on the Metro Code.
Okay.
There's just no recommendation from the Emergency Communications District Board.
That's 728.
728.
They meet on Thursday.
They meet
right?
on Thursday.
Yeah, okay.
It's just a timing thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know that Ms. Crumby would
I
have
was going to
forwarded
say,
it.
this'll,
Good
I would
evening.
say, it's just a weird technicality. We actually used to be third reading and then changed this to second reading.
I had no idea. So I was like,
Yeah, I know, I'm sorry. I was
Yeah.
gonna say, this is like.
I've got a spare one that I copied off.
I fixed it, but I didn't
yeah.
say anything to anybody until yesterday, and I was like, well, probably would be helpful.
So one meeting.
Right, yeah, one meeting, just one meeting.
So you defer at one meeting and I'll take off.
Okay. Where, which one? 7. Okay.
Question on that. Wouldn't that be deferred by rules?
Well, so it's not really by rule, it's actually by the code, so.
You ready? 10, 9, don't have to do that, all right. Good evening, everybody. This is the Tuesday, May 18th Public Works Committee of the Metro Council. We'll call roll. Chair is present. Council Member Allen's present. Councilmember Benedict's going to be a little late. Our Vice Chair, Mr. Bradford, is here. Ms. Evans, she's on her way. Ms. Gamble's here. Mr. Hall is here. Ms. Anderson's here. Ms. Hurt, there you are, way down there. Hello, Ms. Hurt. Mr. O'Connell's here. Mr. Roten, I don't see, or Mr. Young. Oh, Miss Benedict is here. She's here early. Okay. I do have a consent agenda. Starting with page 2, Resolution RS 2021-952. Approves an intergovernmental agreement between the Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Metro Public Works for the acceptance of work in connection with the construction of pedestrian signals and sidewalk improvements on Hamilton Church Road from east of State Route 1 to west of Calumet Drive. And I do have a letter here asking for approval from Councilmember Toombs. On page 3 of the agenda, Bill number 2021-728, Rutherford Murphy Nash O'Connell, renames a portion of Blake Drive from Sunnywood Drive to the dead end to Sweet Oak Court. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the one that has to be deferred. Never mind.
Well, we can
Put my-
consent to defer that, can't we?
Put my, I guess, could we consent to defer that? All right, we'll put that on. That needs to be deferred for the Emergency Communications Department to sign off on the change. Bill 2021-730, Gamble, Murphy, and Nash, accepts new sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes, fire hydrant assemblies, and easements for the property located at 3449 Brick Church Pike, also known as Village by the Creek, Section 10A. Bill number 2021-731, Gamble, Murphy, and Nash, abandons existing public sanitary sewer main and easements and to accept new sanitary sewer and water main, sanitary sewer manholes, fire hydrant assembly, and easements for property located at 3449 Brick Church Pike, also known as Village by the Creek, Section 10B. On page 5, we have bill number 2021-732, Evans, Murphy, and Nash accepts recoats of existing water main and easements for the property located at 4619 Hesse Road at the intersection of Leona Pass and Earhart Road, also known as Ashton Park Water Main Relocation. Bill number 2021-733, Welch, Murphy, and Nash abandons existing public sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manhole and easements to accept new sanitary sewer main, sanitary sewer manholes and easements for property located at 170 Antioch Pike, also known as Darrow Downs Sewer Extension. Lastly, Bill number 2021-734, Hancock, Murphy, and Nash accepts sanitary sewer main and sanitary sewer manhole and easements for property located at 526 Myatt Drive. Does anybody see anything that needs to come off the consent agenda? And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 5, 8. Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Passes 8 in favor, 0 against, and no abstentions. I'm going to back up a little bit. We have some staff reports. I see Mr. Massimo here for second round of discussions kind of concerning how we work with NES, I guess, and doing coordinating those. Mr. Massimo, you're recognized.
Thank you. What I wanted to do is, again, this is going to be a verbal report today, a little more robust than what we were able to share at the last Public Works Committee meeting, but I think it will be indicative of the level of effort that's underway right now that will lead to a full report, hopefully in the next few months. So one of the things, the questions that was asked of us is about an MOU, potentially an MOU that may be has lapsed and where things are. So I wanted to kind of go through with you where the various agreements, MOUs, there are some things that are called MOUs, they're not actually that, but more of an agreement, kind of the status of those and where we are right now in talking about new arrangements with NES and other utility coordination. So you may recall from some of our past presentations that we actually have reinstituted a very robust utility coordination process in place that we are working to begin to engage both at the staff level in terms of our field problems and the kinds of things that we see in the field, routine project coordination and so forth, as well as policy level coordination. So that staff level committee meets once a month. We just met yesterday and gave a presentation, for example, on the transportation plan as we're beginning to coordinate each other's long-range plans for development of our systems. And then we also have a quarterly meeting that's called more on an as-needed basis, but again, it's of the management and policy level folks, so that as we have those kinds of issues arise, and we can begin to talk about those as well. So Public Works is in the early stages of coordinating with NES on a new streetlight service maintenance agreement where components of smart lighting could be acknowledged and included. There are various agreements in place also with Metro fiber projects, and there are guidelines in place. Some of those are not as advantageous to us in terms of the kinds of impact it has on our timelines for delivery and cost to do business, and we are working on that with NES now. In addition, there's a current 2008 MOU between Metro and NES on pole attachments. It was a 10-year agreement with annual extensions, and you have the opportunity pending a 6-month request for termination to terminate that agreement, but right now it just proceeds on an annual agreement. Under development now between Metro and NES is a new pole attachment agreement that also considers street lighting, pole relocation, the use of right-of-way, and cost sharing. So for example, when a utility pole needs to move, who moves it, when does it get moved, and who pays the cost? What we found is that it's a little bit different. In some cases, we have arrangements that are very equitable to Metro, and in other cases, we don't. So there's a little bit of interesting things that occur there that we've just got to sort out so that we have a more consistent application of how we coordinate our business in that regard. Because one of the things that we know is, for example, that's one of the primary influencers of the long terms that you see on sidewalk delivery is utility coordination in that time to move poles and so forth. And so we're going to affect that, we think, with this new agreement. We also are working on, I mentioned smart lighting and the street light servicing agreement, and we're doing a full inventory now of MOUs, agreements, our practice and cost, because when we started looking into all of our financial arrangements and our financial relationships with NES and with other utilities, it covered everything from what we originally were talking about with regard to pole attachments and right-of-way management and so forth, including fiber lighting, we have an agreement with them for 800 megahertz radio, pole attachment, small cell, and pole management. So you can see that there's quite a waterfront, and it's, as we dug into it, we just found that there was more things that really required a much more in-depth evaluation, but we're moving very expeditiously on that, and we are engaged with the law department as well as their legal folks in terms of these various agreements and so forth, and how we can perhaps even look at doing this in a more comprehensive fashion versus all of these one-off agreements. So we expect, given the complexity of all that I've just described to you, we hope that it's understandable that in terms of an actual presentation on this, which is I think what your original request was from this committee, if you would give us a couple of months, because we're really digging in deep and it's going to take that much time to get back to you with a full report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? We don't want to belabor it too much because we got the report coming, but go ahead.
Just real quickly, will that report include an inventory of all the poles that have lights on them and any kind of assessment of how much energy those are actually using and what the cost is per kWh that we're paying?
We're working on the cost that we are paying out for service and lighting and so forth now. That will be a part of it. That may take a little longer even than what I'm talking about in the next couple of months, but those are all things that we are including under that umbrella of factors that we need to fully include, council member, to make sure that this, that all of our utility or our right-of-way management is fully considered in the work that we're doing.
I think that's important information.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Ms. Massimo, thank you so much. I appreciate you responding to my request, and something that I think bubbles up in this committee a lot on a lot of different avenues, and that you're looking at it more comprehensively rather than just kind of this piece and that piece. Speaking to, I hear you saying kind of robust utility coordination, but then I also hear you saying just getting started. So is that just because various parts of it are at various phases, and there's going to be some effort at the end to kind of pull it together by way of this report to us?
Absolutely. And when I said just getting started, so you know that the enhanced utility coordination process that we've had in place, we started that about a year ago. I think that was actually in one of the reports that we provided to council maybe about a month or so ago, in terms of, sort of there were some questions, I believe you asked, council member, about the value of everything that we've been doing, and you were surprised, I think, in some of the things that we recounted that had been efforts that we had undertaken. So my point in saying that there's sort of different phases is when you asked us a question originally, what prompted this report was a question about an MOU that we thought maybe had lapsed. And what we found was there was not an MOU. There were several MOUs, and there were several agreements, and there were some things that were in place and some things that are no longer in place. And then there were some other efforts that were sort of going on throughout different departments. And when we all realized that we were all talking to the same folks about the same kinds of things, but not in a comprehensive fashion, that's when we said, wait a minute, let's pull all the team together and make sure that we're approaching this in a very integrated way. So that's what is coming about a little more later in the game, but all of the individual efforts are in various stages of accomplishment and understanding and so forth. So.
Just one quick follow-up question. Do you feel like, and we can bring this up in our budget hearing, more specifically operational budget hearing, but do you feel like, based on your previous utility coordination work, right-of-way maintenance, what you've been hearing from the council about that kind of right-of-way maintenance space, I think Ms. Whitelaw and her report to us on what we're going to talk about next is foreseeing putting some more people into inspection, permitting, and kind of keeping up with that space. But do you foresee a need, whether it is particular to street lighting, kind of as you progress to a DOT, somebody who is charged from a kind of process and performance and agreements, and somebody in DOT who's particularly charged with this sort of utility coordination by way of a position?
Somebody that would be responsible or have lead on utility coordination, but more importantly, has lead on curbside infrastructure management. There's a lot of things going on in our curbside. I know you've heard me say this before. A curbside is not what you used to think it was. It's not just for parking meters and sidewalks, right? We've got fiber, we've got lights, we've got all sorts of things happening now, all the rideshare services and so forth that are using our curbs, and how we manage that effectively, and utility coordination is a part of that. And like I said, we do not have right now a consistent approach to how we're managing that utility coordination across all activities, and that's something that I think would be highly desirable, and certainly desirable within the portfolio of activities that the DOT has to accomplish. So I would say that, yes, we need to have a person whose point, and I think we've suggested that in our staffing request on utilities, but particularly in that right-of-way space, which will become curbside infrastructure management.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you. Sounds like you're getting it under control. Big. Ms. Whitelaw, you want to come next? We've had some questions about micro trenching and just all kinds of work in the right-of-way, curbside with
Sure.
They kind of go together.
I understand. I hope that everybody was able to get my short memo that I sent to Chairman Nash, hopefully,
Yeah.
and had an opportunity to read it. It was intended to be a short, just sort of a summary, because micro trenching is one of those spaces that we recognized several months ago we did not have a good spec on, which is why we have a new spec, which we sent out as part of that, which is just approved in December of last year. Before micro trenching came to town, fiber was mainly done through boring, and it still is. Only about 30% of micro trenching activities are permitted through is for fiber. The rest of the fiber is done through boring. So we get caught into either we're going through the ground beside the pavement and tearing up trees, which is also not supposed to be done, or we're in pavement and we're not restoring the pavement correct. So those are two things that we are focused on and we recognize are the problems. We believe our specs and our policies are adequate. What's not adequate is our lack of resources, and this goes to Councilmember Henderson's comment regarding staffing and how do we improve that. Part of our budget request is 4 additional permit inspectors to support what we have currently, which unfortunately is only 6 inspectors and 4 inspectors and 6 consultants. Consultants can help us in the times of peak demand, but should not be our standard, and that's something we're trying to move away from, which is what our budget request is for. So as far as improvements, we are working toward training. In fact, today was our first permits training program that we started. We started working on it back in January and trying to pull that together. It focuses on safety, it focuses on policies, it focuses on procedures, really to empower our inspectors to hold accountable those who need to be held accountable, but also to hold our inspectors accountable to make sure that they're also doing it. If we don't train them properly, we can't hold them accountable. So today was our first, tomorrow will be our second. We're split them up because of social distancing. And then we plan to have monthly improvements. So we'll be modules of activities that we're doing relative to permit and right-of-way space and ensuring that our assets are put back the way they're supposed to be put back so that they will last as long as they need to. But does anyone have any real details in the micro-trenching spec or how we're handling a specific area? I'm more than welcome to answer.
I'm going to go to Councilmember Allen first.
Sure.
I'm trying to get too deep in the weeds. 3 issues that you brought up already. I have not seen any trenches be finished. It seems to be that they dig the trench, they stick the orange cable conduit in there, and then they just sort of let the street sweepers fill it back up as they get around to it, it seems like, which for a bicycle rider on a very narrow tire can be really dangerous. And so maybe that's in the spec, but if it is, so is that an issue just of inspection or?
It is one of the things I learned myself just in the last several days is when they do micro trenching, we backfill with flowable fill, which is the flowable concrete, sort of cementous. We leave that short for about 1.5 inches for it to dry. It's supposed to dry that day, and then they come back with this the mastic. What's happened is because of so much rain and wet, I'll be honest, they don't fill it in because it's wet. You can't fill it in before it's wet. So we're looking at tweaking our spec that would include higher strength flowable fill that can go all the way to the top on that day. So if we see it's raining, if we see it's going to be moisture, we're going to require them to fill it that day. They are required by spec to fill it that day or the next day, and that's not happening. I appreciate, and I've seen that, and that's part of our inspection and improvement and enforcement activities.
Because I'm seeing some stay open for
Yes.
weeks at a time. And then the other issue is I've had lots of conversations with Jennifer Smith, bless her heart. She's been very patient with me, just with regard to trees. And I think Councilmember Henderson can fill in other stories on that one. And just ensuring that we've got a documentation mechanism in place. And I would request a 3-year bond that says, you know, if someone has pictures that show that you disturbed those roots and the trees are dead in 2 years, you know, then you've got a bond that can help replace a mature oak tree that provided shade and you know, all those other benefits. Is that in place?
It is not in place. In fact, we're working through whether we would want to go with a bond route, or do we say the cost of the permit's gone up for however many trees there are. So we're still trying to figure out what's the best way to capture the money that we could then go back and replace it because they've already paid into the tree bank or they've already paid into a fund, as opposed to trying to have to go back, get a bond, figure it out. We actually want to be more proactive, but we're working through the details on how best to do that, and we would welcome support.
Okay, I'll support you on that one. Okay, and like I said, just the documentation to show responsibility, but if we're willing to pick that up. And can we already say we know that what we're charging as far as fees is not covering the cost of what it would take to do this right? I mean, do we have to do a full-blown study before we can increase the fees?
We do need to show that it's cost of service, so we do need to do some work on that. And it is, I can say that our fees are low compared to peer cities and compared to what we're doing. We know our fees are low. It does become drinking out of a fire hydrant of staffing, resources, and being able to then focus on fees to increase them. So it is one of the priorities in the DOT and where we want to move forward with resources, but we know our fees are not where they need to be.
Good. Well, the faster we can get that fixed, the better. And again, I will just say thanks to Rory for always showing up. And I've called him a lot, and he's been, anyway, everybody's been very responsive, which I appreciate, but I still have holes this big that my grandson can stand in.
I understand.
Knee deep, you know, and that's scary.
Yes.
So, you know, I don't want to be paying for a lawsuit if we know we can fix it.
I
Thank you.
understand.
Council Lady Henderson.
I concur with all of what Council Lady Allen has just shared. And I wanted to ask kind of in the near term, so while I do appreciate that we're looking at, you know, it's increased staffing through this operational budget, revising this spec, what in the near term from an accountability perspective, I mean, if we do have, so let me ask now, for right-of-way inspection, you said we had 4 employees, and then we have we extended our emergency contract a second time for right-of-way inspection?
ma'am.
Where are we on the contracted inspection?
We have 6 construction and engineering and inspection contracts that have been executed in the last several months, and we are not extending the emergency. We are soliciting through those 3 for actually just renewing in the next month. So we've been using that existing PO through this month.
So the whole kind of multi-team CEI approach, I mean, could this then be a discrete work effort where somebody would come out and just come behind all this work that has been done from an analytical perspective, but also from an accountability perspective? I mean, to Councilor Allen's point, there is so much on the ground right now that is underfilled, grass is growing. I mean, there's a lot of it. And so I just wonder in the near term, I appreciate that we're working towards process improvement, but what are we going to do in the near term to make those areas safe?
Sure. Going through and looking at old permits is what you're saying, and let's go back and double check them. And QA/QC, did they actually get filled as they should? I think that's a great effort. We were actually pulling the number of permits and what we've had in the last 2 years on micro trenching to see what level of effort we would need. And as we're moving through with the CEI contracts and the purchase orders that we're looking at right now, we're looking at a concentrated effort of how can we go do some of that QA/QC checking, finding out where do we need to be so that we can have a baseline for moving forward. So yes, we are looking at that.
And let me ask you, particular to micro trenching within the asphalt, right? So in the laneway, whether it's bike lane or travel lane for cars. So the date on that spec was January 15th.
There's a 2020, December of 2020 spec that's online now.
Okay, great. Well, I was just looking, whatever
Sure,
in the
I
packet you
understand.
sent us, it looked like it was signed
Yeah.
off in mid-January, so December, January. or I guess maybe that was an update, but can I ask, I mean, so if you talk to industry folks, like, you know, AT&T will say, we don't want to do microtrenching. We don't like doing microtrenching. We're going to keep doing boring. Did we engage in microtrenching in response to a particular corporate request? I mean, who is microtrenching? And, you know, were they microtrenching before this, or this is sort of a new thing at someone's request? Can you kind of speak to?
When fiber optic came to Nashville several years ago, when it was the big Google push to be was the beginner.
Right.
Let's say that microtrenching came on our radar. So Google is one who does microtrenching. Some other fibers do microtrenching. I don't know exactly how many. You have a choice. We do not force microtrenching. We give the option. It's an excavation permit, and then if you're going to do microtrenching, this is the spec you have to follow. If you're going to be boring, this is the spec that you have to follow.
I guess I'm wondering about.
We don't encourage either one.
Okay, I guess I'm wondering though about the kind of the behind the scenes process decisions, right? So I recognize that wherever you're boring or trenching or whatever, like there's conflicts, right? And so kind of figuring out which method has the least conflicts. But what I'm trying to make sure that we're doing from an accountability perspective is, you know, we're thinking most about the public right-of-way and what our obligation is, because private companies are using our public right-of-way. And so I don't want us bending ourselves into all kinds of pretzels to deliver something because it's most advantageous to a particular corporation or corporations plural. So I guess I'm wondering, you know, and you can kind of follow up, Chair, but I'm just wondering kind of the behind the scenes, you know, just determining, okay, we're going to do microtrenching versus, and, you know, I haven't looked at peer cities, but just saying, nope, we're always going to require boring. This is what we're going to do. This is our standard, and we're sticking to it. So I just wonder about the kind of the fluidity of that decision, or just from a, just how those decisions, you know, a company comes to Public Works or to whomever and says, we'd like to microtrench, and then we, you know, I mean, how does that kind of get initiated, I guess is my question.
Is your question on a specific event and we want a microtrench and we say yes or no? Or are you saying when microtrenching came to Nashville years ago?
When microtrenching came to Nashville years ago, based on, we did not have a spec at that time.
Correct.
Right, and then, so we've, you know, we're still revising our spec even now because
Yes.
of how kind of problematic it's proved to be. So I guess I'm just wondering to what extent.
I was not at Public Works at the time, so that's before me, but I was at Water Services. And I can speak to boring and what happened to water lines and sewer service lines and other gas lines and other sorts of things that are in the right of way that we continue to struggle with on the water side. So I do think it was there's always utility conflicts, and in some ways you say putting it in the pavement where we know there's not a utility conflict, but we're taking, as you say, then you have the risk associated with the pavement. Our spec does say they can't put a microtrench in anything that's been paved within the last 5 years. So we are trying to make sure we're not damaging our pavement that's new. You know, we don't want to go out and have them ruin something that's fresh and new and's got a long life. So that is something we're doing. So I was not at Public Works in that time, so I can't really speak to the space of how, but I can relate to the pain that I suffered because I was over in water with the water problems that were occurring with the boring activities. And then, I mean, trees is another great example of if you're not in the pavement in your boring, now we have the tree conflict too. So it's just really hard when you have so much activity going on in the right-of-way, how best to manage and what is the risk that as a city we take, and how do we make sure we minimize it as much as possible.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Everybody wants fiber now. Just for my own education, when trees are damaged, who's kind of first in line for the homeowner to try and get some compensation from?
Contact us, and then we do the research to see, do we believe it was related to fiber, and do we believe it was a boring activity, and we proceed from there. It's right now, it is, as Councilmember Allen and I think Henderson have also, it can be quite murky.
But I guess, is the company held responsible that did the boring, or does the city?
At the moment, we are struggling with how do we hold the boring company accountable? Because it's several years later and it becomes,
Yeah.
which goes to trying to get the funds up front so that we can manage it.
Okey-doke.
You're discussing from a training perspective, right? It is the inspectors on the ground holding that contractor accountable. When they're working around trees, they're supposed to take a picture, send a text, right? That inspector needs to follow up. So like in that moment, and also too, respectfully, like the stop work has to mean something, right? Like if you do something wrong, it's gonna cost you. So I think, the budgetary changes of putting more people in inspection, right-of-way inspection, having better training for that. I think we're all pretty mindful that, you drive around now and whether it's, gravel or tree roots or boring or the right-of-way is not looking great, so we've got to kind of invest in that space, I think. So.
Ms. Bradford?
So I have a question. When you mentioned the water services, so does this spec also cover replacement of fire hydrants, or is that a completely different spec? Because,
Yeah, that's a completely different spec.
okay, because the reason I bring it up is there's been 2 replacements in my district, and I've had several complaints about them because of how long it takes for someone to come back and refill them. And I've been talking with Mr. Honeysucker about one particular one, and I haven't gotten any confirmation that that's been corrected. So I was just wondering if they have a similar spec, if this is the same spec, how do we, and kind of make sure that our contractors, when they tear up someone's yard or tear up our right-of-ways to replace these, that they're coming back and they're basically leaving it the way they found it.
Fire hydrant would be a separate spec, and water services inspects those to make sure they're put back in place.
Okay. And we have one more. Tom Pelko sent out, I'm sorry, question. Councilman Hurd.
Yes. When Councilmember Henderson was talking, it made me think about the private homeowners and how is that managed? Who holds the contractors accountable? And how do you address the boundaries of the property in terms of what they're doing?
What's right away versus what's private?
Right.
Like if they get into private property?
Exactly.
Our inspectors do that. We work through and make sure that we know where the right-of-way is and how far from the center line it is so that we're definitely within the right-of-way. So if the contractor gets outside and gets into private property, we are making sure that they are responsible for repairing any damage to the private property.
So I know none of our inspectors would take any money to say that they are not in someone's, that they are not in the right of way. But is it possible? I mean, how do we know that this is what they say that it is and hold people accountable because it's private property? Is there any way?
The right-of-way is different roads have different widths of right-of-way. So you are working from the center line out to see that you're within the right-of-way, and it's usually right at edge of pavement.
Now, the trees, I recall that some trees were planted on Jefferson Street and some years ago. And there was no irrigation, and we kind of had a drought, and the trees died. How do we deal with that? How can we make sure that we plant the trees in fertile way where we know that even if we don't have the kind of rain that we need, that they're going to survive and not just plant the trees to keep them?
We have really robust tree management now that's out of stormwater, and we also have a tree focus in Public Works right now that we're working on trying to improve that, because it is something where even if you have good trees, the first 2 years of a tree's life, it's its most important. So making sure that you have a water bag or that you're watering appropriately is very important. And so we're making all efforts that we can, and with our partnership with Stormwater, we do try to make sure, or if it is a construction project, we'll have that in part of the contract, that, you know, for the next year or two, a warranty for keeping the vegetation, including the trees, alive through that period, and if not, we need to bring them and put them back. Right now, if the trees are dead right now, please let me know and we can work through, because we do have a tree bank program and we have trees, and we're looking to plant in right-of-ways everywhere we can. So if that's a place we need to, we certainly can.
And I know this is completely separate from anything else that we're talking about, but I just happened to be over there a lot in the last week. But on one of the streets in 37208, they have bike lanes.
Okay.
And there are cars that are parked there, and it's narrow. And I'm afraid that because the bike lanes come into the street, that it's hard for an emergency vehicle to get down the street, especially if there are cars on the street. I'm not sure how we're going to maneuver that.
Could you send me the street, please, and I'll look into it.
Arthur?
Is it Arthur? Oh, yes, I know Arthur. All right, we'll look into Arthur Avenue. We'll do that.
That's it, thank you.
Going once, going twice, gone.
And are we gonna have a dedicated session meeting to go into this more deeply?
I was going to discuss it with you in my discussions that we kind of heard what you're going to hear at a special meeting. I didn't know if you still wanted one, needed one. They're not kind of fully prepared yet
Can we
on
get
all of
prepared?
the reports that kind of touch on this. I'm at your.
I would concur with Councilman Allen, because I think, you know, I appreciate we had the time today to kind of carve out and speak about these two somewhat intersecting issues. I think, you know, Vice Mayor, even at the start of this term, I think in response to kind of myriad concerns about right-of-way, there was a right-of-way special committee. And, you know, respectfully, that was kind of right at the beginning of the term. And so I think, Chair, I would suggest there's maybe an opportunity, whether it's, you know, the NES utility coordination piece, the micro trenching, which is sort of related, to do a specially called, you know, that would allow the committee time to completely review what Ms. Whitelaw sent. It would give sort of a date certain to Ms. DeMassimo and her efforts to come back to the committee. So, you know, it could be after budget, you know, but I was just...
If that's agreeable, I will get with Mr. Massimo and Ms. Whitelaw and maybe a couple of months down the road and line something up. Good? Very good, thank you. And I know y'all got the report from Mr. Pelco and all the work done and maps of the different areas of town, the suburban areas and the like. And if you have any questions, here's your time. Mr. Pelco, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to briefly describe what we did. So when the stormwater user fee took place in 2009, part of the requirements was that my boss, Scott Potter, sends a report to the Metro Council every year on where we spent those funds. And so there's been a lot of discussion lately on where we're spending money, where we're not spending money, where we have open service requests. That was one of Council Lady Allen's question was, you know, where are open service requests in the district? So what we did was we compiled a report that took the last 6 years of work that we've done. So we pulled the information back out of CityWorks and I tracked the number of capital projects, the cost of those smaller C projects, some small capital projects. We also looked at routine projects that we do with our staff, and we put money associated with that based on our folks using our time. So essentially the report is over a 6-year period, but it doesn't include the capital projects that we're doing this year because those projects are still ongoing and open and the numbers are not finished. So those are lacking in this report. But basically the report describes $63 million that we spent in the last 6 years. And we went ahead and divided that up by council district and then kind of did a ranking on where that money was spent and where those numbers of projects are. And then give you a little bit of explanation of what a service request is and what a work order is. So a service request is just what it sounds like. Someone calls and says, hey, every time it rains, there's water in that intersection. So we send folks out, we do an investigation. That service request may end up becoming a work order, or it may not. It may get closed because we go out there and it's private trouble. It's not something that the city can do. And so every service request does not generate a work order, and every work order doesn't necessarily come out of a service request. Sometimes those come from our own staff. And a work order could actually solve several different service requests. So the numbers, it's not a one-to-one correspondence, it's just what it is. But whenever we do a work order and close that work order, it also closes the corresponding service request. So one of the things we tracked in here was the number of work orders that we've actually done in each district and the number of service requests that we both close and also the ones that are open. So the open service requests give us some kind of indication on work that is left to be done. It's issues that, yes, we've seen it, we've evaluated it to determine that it is something that is on our plate to do, but we haven't done it yet. So some of those are actually in our consultants' hands where projects are being designed, and those will eventually become projects. And we also understand that we only have 1,700 open service requests in the county. We know that is just the tip of the iceberg of what work we need to do out in the county. We know for a fact that we don't know everything we need to do. So I put that report together just to kind of confirm it is. I was talking to Council Lady Allen today, and this report is what it is. It's where we spent the money. It's where we haven't spent the money. And there's some conversation of who has a lot of open service requests in their district, who doesn't. And we also think that there's a function of sometimes we just don't hear from folks, and so again, that's just to say that that's what this report is. And so if there's any questions about that, I'd be glad to answer.
Questions? Going once? Going twice? You did too good a job. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just particular to, I mean, Mr. Palco's given us a report. I think Mr. Hammond sent us a report previously. Ms. Whitelaw's given us a report. I struggle sometimes to kind of go back and say, like, well, did Ms. Hayes forward that to me, or was that sent to you, or was it sent to the whole committee? But I just wanted to remind the committee about our OneDrive, our Public Works Committee specific folder, and just ask when we do have these special reports, if somebody on staff could make sure to put those in there, because, Mr. Palco. Yeah, Mr. Palco, respectfully, I saw your thing when it came in, and I've spent this whole time trying to find it again so I could look at it, so I could ask you a question, and I can't find it, so.
This would have come to you from John Cooper, J.O.N. Cooper.
Okay, right, because so sometimes J.O.N. Cooper forwards it, sometimes Ms. Hayes forwards it, but I think if it's particular to Public Works and a report to this committee, I would be grateful if we could always put it in the OneDrive so we know where to go back and reference it, so, thank you.
Who's the OneDrive guru on staff? Okay, I'll try to remember that.
Just y'all on the staff side, you just, figure out who does that for Public Works Committee would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, back to the agenda. Starting off with resolution RS 2021-950 by Hall, approves the property at 4601 Ashland City Highway to be used for a waste transfer facility. You recognize Mr. Hall?
This will be deferred to the first meeting in June.
I did see some of the discussion on it yesterday.
Budget and finance.
Budget finance. Deferred till the
First meeting in June?
Second meeting.
Second meeting.
Second
So
meeting.
what was that date? You remember the date?
June 15th.
June the 15th.
That's in order for it to track with
The ordinance that's related.
the ordinance. Any questions? Councilmember Allen?
I can just get the sponsor to help me out with the big picture, because I know there are a lot of moving parts to this, and there's a C&D landfill in one location, and now this one's being proposed in another, and there's a Jackson Law, and can you sort of put it all in one bucket and tell me what the hoped for outcome is?
So the conversation is basically, it's almost identical location. It's literally separated by a road on the same side. This sits across from the C&D landfill. Those groups are having conversations amongst themselves, but all of this is set to track with other legislation in terms of the Solid Waste Commission, to track with the Zero Waste Plan by the Solid Waste Board, and the expectations for it. So exercising all the options in terms of diversion, trying to create legislation and the mechanism to strengthen that solid waste regional plan moving forward. And so those two are tracking together for that purpose, but this conversation is actually kind of being managed simply, one, to track with other legislation, and two, because of where we are now with the C&D landfill being in Chancery.
Anyone else? Do I have a motion?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. That's 10 in favor, 0 against, no abstentions. Moving on to page 2, top of the page, Resolution RS 2021-951, O'Connell, Taylor, Murphy, Toombs, and Nash approves a cooperative agreement between the Federal Highway Administration, United States Department of Transportation, the Tennessee Department of Transportation, and Metro Public Works for the Charlotte Avenue / Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard Transit Headways and Congestion Management Project to be executed under the Advanced Transportation Congestion Management Technology Deployment Initiative.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Conner, could you give us a brief overview, or somebody from administration give us a quick overview? I think Ms. Whitelaw, the Reader's Digest version. Oh. The Charlotte Avenue, Dr. Martin Luther King Transit Headways and Congestion Management Project. Yeah, just a Reader's Digest version.
So this is a grant application. It's called ATC-MTD, MLK Charlotte Avenue. It is a smart corridor, and it's a component of the overall smart corridor that's in the transportation plan. The funding for this was $500,000 from Metro, $1.5 million from Federal Highway Administration, and $1 million from TDOT. That $1 million, I think there was a question yesterday, wasn't there, about it's included in their current budget. And we were one of only 10 in the country that was awarded, and this will do two things. It's truly a multimodal investment. It's about technology that will improve the transit activity in that corridor, as well as improve our traffic flow in that corridor.
Thank you.
For the signals and all that.
Anybody else? Discussion? Question? Seeing none, all those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Got 9-4, 0 against. And no abstentions. Bottom of the page, bill number 2021-693 by Mr. Hall establishes a special solid waste commission to review and identify solutions for the long-term disposal of Nashville solid waste. And I know we also have a substitute. Like to make a substitute. And a second. Any discussion on the substitute? It was in the amendments package. I thought it did a good job of. Yeah. Would you kind of describe your substitute?
Mr. Jameson.
For the administration.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Jameson, all right, can you, I've got it here if you need it.
Thank you, Chair. We had a great meeting with Councilman Hall last week, and the substitute does really three principal things. Adds the recycling component that Councilman Bradford had added, and fleshed that out even to encourage specifically composting and not just recycling in and of itself, but diversion from the landfill to begin with. Then also with respect to the membership, it adds one from 11 to 12, and then rather than reciting specific names, recites categories of those positions that might offer some expertise, including a former member of the Solid Waste Master Plan, 2 of the council members, a member of the Mayor Sustainability Advisory Committee, one of the drafters of the Solid Waste Master Plan, including one of our own council members, representatives from higher education and finance. And then lastly, with respect to, instead of a one-year deadline to complete the report, just because of the urgency of this and because we already have the Solid Waste Master Plan, it's now time to focus on implementation rather than further study. Councilman Hall suggested 6 months. We're completely on board with that. And just to expedite this, have a report to the council on that 6-month rather than 12-month time period.
Thank you, Mr. James. And any questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the substitute, vote by saying aye.
Aye. We should be back at 10.
0. 10-4-0 against, and now on the bill.
Move for
as
approval as substituted.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, vote saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. 10-4-0 against.
I have to leave my quorum.
Next, on page 3, bill number 2021-694, Hall and Hurt, requires all existing culverts, inlets, storm drains, and ditches within the T2 rural neighborhood policy, T3 suburban neighborhood policy be upgraded, retrofitted, and/or constructed to current stormwater management manual standards by December 31st, 2026. Mr. Hall, you're recognized.
I'd like to move the substitute, please.
It is substitute. Do we have a second on the substitute? We have the motion and a second. Any, Ms. Gamble, you want to explain the substitute?
Sure, thank you, Chair. So the substitute replaces the language of requiring that the inlets and drains be replaced to having them be reviewed so that we are able to get information and data in order to make prudent and educated decisions about what needs to be done, how much it costs before we actually do that. And this goes in line with Metro Water a master plan, which they are intending to start working on a master plan for the entire city to look at what areas or what needs to be done as far as replacing inlets, drains, and ditches throughout the entire county. This substitute also prioritizes the T2, T3 intersects because there right now is a potential for a development boom in those areas. And what I'm proposing is that we get in front of that and be proactive and review these needs before development starts to happen so that we can work in tandem with the city and with developers in addressing these and be more proactive instead of reactive in the way that we have conducted business in the past, particularly as it relates to replacing these stormwater, getting our stormwater up to standards in our urban core and other areas. So this substitute, again, focuses on reviewing what needs to be done and the cost for that as opposed to replacing it. It is proposed to do that in tandem with the Metro Water's master plan and have this report completed by January 1, 2023 and presented to the council. However, in talks with Metro Water and the administration, there's an amendment that we'd like to bring forth on 3rd to tweak the language a little bit to include all of the transects, or at least the master plan would be for the entire city, but include in that master plan a subset that talks about each transect from T1 through T5 or 4, however many we have, so that we can understand the needs in those transects as well, as I said, in order to be proactive and get ahead of development boom and those needs before the development happens. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Well, I'm concerned about those areas and culverts that we already know need to be replaced. As opposed to having review, because there I know is one family whose home floods every time that there's a hard rain, not necessarily torrential rain where there are flooding all over the county, but it's just a hard rain, and particularly in their backyards. So how do we address those? Because as far as I'm concerned, the studies have already been done, and the reviews have been done for some of those areas in District 1, and it has been brought to the attention of the administration and Metro Water for years, but nothing has been done. So that's my concern. That's the reason why I signed on to it, because I know that when I was assigned in that area, we had some specific problems, and they still exist today.
Well, I'm going to let administration, Mr. Palco or someone speak to your specific question, but I would like to say that, you know, I realize the intent, and I appreciate the intent of Councilman Hall in bringing this forward, because while District 1 has a lot of T2 and T3 suburban areas, District 3 does as well. A big portion of my district has T2 rural and T3 suburban, and I also get a lot of calls from residents that are having flooding problems. So those things should be addressed or should be reported now so that they can be on the long list that Mr. Palco just told us about, where Metro Water needs to do investigations and address incidents or situations that are happening now. But what I'm suggesting is, in addition to that work, in tandem, we need to also be forward-thinking and looking at what needs to be done moving forward so we can get in front of that particularly in my district, as T2 and T3 rural areas are starting to become more developed. So.
I don't know that I can improve upon that, actually, Chairman. So we're in full agreement with her. We're grateful for a recommendation that allows us to go countywide. Some of you may have heard, for example, Councilman Sledge speak yesterday and movingly about he's in T4 and he gets constituent complaints and concerns, and this would not address him unless we go to a countywide perspective. The most recent capital spending plan does have allocations for immediate needs. That will continue, and the capital spending plan approach the council has at its disposal. You'll have another one in the fall. That will continue. But in terms of what is the long range and where are the priorities from a comprehensive assessment, Metro Water has already begun the consultation outreach for the master plan that allows them, and that had been ongoing. If we can make these two jibe, and in terms of making it countywide, slightly tweaking the date, because we're adding geography, so we'll probably need until mid-23, not January 1st, 23. Changes like that we'll bring to Council Lady Gamble in terms of this amendment on third reading that'll take suspension of the rules. But in the meantime, we're supportive of the substitute that gets us halfway there.
Council Lady Benedict.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So I have T3NM in my district, which is not the same, but I will say that we have had a ton of development in my area, and District 7 borders the river, Cumberland River, and so there's a number of drainage issues. What I will say is that I appreciate where the sponsor's coming from with this, especially regarding the substitute. I think it's important to look at this. I wish it would have been looked at in my district sooner as it relates to the stormwater issues that my constituents have. I have someone who has a sewer drain in her backyard, who has sewer going in her house that stormwater is working on, and that came to my attention just in the past couple of weeks. So I think that is one of the problems that we run into when we have significant development that hasn't been managed. So I appreciate that approach. I appreciate that it's about looking at it, not that it's about spending the tens of millions of dollars or the unknown costs that we have at this point. So I'm supportive of the substitute, and I just wanted to share with the committee that this is something that I hope that as a city in the longer range, as Mr. Jameson just spoke about, that as a city we're looking at that in the longer range as we continue to grow. The city is only going to grow in density, and we're going to have to continue to manage the stormwater runoff that's the result of the additional concrete and the tree canopy that's being taken away. When I look at District 1 and District 3, there's a tremendous amount of trees. There's a tremendous amount of concern with maintaining that environmental situation in order to help manage that water. So with that in mind, I wish that we were looking at this everywhere, although I understand the need and the rapid growth in that area. Thank you.
Council Lady Hurd.
So thank you, Chair, and I appreciate the growth and development, but that's where my big concern is. I'm not sure that the infrastructure can handle all of the growth and development that we have when it comes to stormwater and sewage and all of that. I mean, we have the infrastructure now that was focused on much lesser development than what we're seeing now. So my thing is dealing with those existing problems, making sure we got those straight before we venture out into something new. And we don't let it neglect. I mean, it's like getting a new car. Just because you get a new car doesn't mean that you let the old one go away, because it still runs and it still can provide you with the service that it needs. So again, I'm concerned about what we already have, the existing problems for residents that have been here for 50 years and dealing with this before we get to, and I appreciate the spirit of the substitute, and I'm not saying that I'm speaking against it, but I think we've got to deal with the things that are emergency needs at this point and not put it off and let it get overshadowed by what we're doing for the new growth that's coming. What about that's already here?
Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess, could I get someone from Stormwater to talk us through the process? I mean, two questions I'm asking. One, you've given us this list with all the numbers. It shows in District 1 that there were $3,293, maybe millions of dollars spent over the past 5 years, and they had $563 million spent on big things. And then you've got the number of service requests that's in the hundreds or whatever, and you've closed 693 of those. And there still is, there's still a number outstanding, 65, and that's stuff that needs to be done. So, I mean, there's a process where people complain, it gets on a list somewhere, and you address, apparently, 600 of them in at least one district. So can you talk through, if someone lets you know there's a problem, how it gets on a list and how you figure out when to get to it? Because I think that's the issue that is of concern to every district council member, has some constituent that they really want to be able to help. How do we get from service request to actually helping them? And then the second forward-looking question is, when someone comes in and says, I'm going to build on this piece of land, what's the process for ensuring that they're not going to create a new problem? So 2 questions in one, sorry.
And they're simple questions, so
Okay.
good. So when we started in 2009, when we started the user, before 2009, our funding was sporadic and it came from wherever it came from, and it was totally inadequate, and we all knew that. So in 2009, when we started the fee, we had so much, which I would call low-hanging fruit. We had so many things that we knew about that we just have been not addressing because we didn't have the funding. So early on, we said, let's just get out there and start building stuff. So that went on and we still have plenty of those projects. Right now, we currently have 3 engineering firms that are each working on about 100 different projects in some form or fashion design, and we're building about 300 capital projects a year. So we've got, the ones we're doing right now, we're building the ones, and when those get designed, we'll be doing the next one and doing the next ones. But we don't have a county-wide list of where all these projects are. We are still being somewhat reactive, and in some areas, the development has gone so fast ahead of us that for us to go in now to put a stormwater infrastructure in, it's going to cost us a whole lot more because there's no place to put it because it's all developed. So instead of being able to go diagonally across properties now, we're going to be having to go down the right of way because we can't follow where nature used to have the water go. So that gets to your point about, we do need to look at areas that we have existing problems, but we also have to look at areas where there aren't existing problems, because if we don't address them now. So the trick is, how do we, number one, identify where all those things are, and then number two, how do we prioritize those? So we really can't prioritize them, and we really can't decide how to fund them until we know how big the problem is. So that's why the master planning effort is going to go countywide. There's going to be a similar master plan in the combined sewer system area. And the problem we have down there is that as development's occurring, we have developers that would step up to the plate and say, hey, instead of me doing all this stuff on site, I'd be glad to pay some money to the bigger plan to fix whatever but we don't have the bigger plan. So since we don't have what the neighborhood plan is, we don't really have a mechanism to collect their portion of that plan and allow them to pay into that plan. So we need the master plan in the developed areas as people are developing so they can pay in. And then we also need to know what they are everywhere else so we can come up with what that long-term number is so we can figure out how to budget it. So it's everything. We need to, and like I said earlier, the number of service requests we have open, we know that is just hardly anything as far as what the problem is. So through the master planning effort, we will actually have public meetings where we'll bring people to the table and say, hey, here's what we know about your area. Here's the things we're working on. What are we missing? So that'll help us fit in these different details and fit in these different projects and come up with a game plan, okay, in this area here. And once we get them all mapped out and get them planned out, we can divide those up and look at them through different transects, however we want to look at them. We can split them up by council district. We can do however we want to do. But the main thing is just to look at the county-wide and see where they are and see where real projects are. Part of the issue we've had up to this point is with the funding being what it is, that it used to be $13 million when we first started. Now it's about $34 million. It's hard for us to do a $5 million project or a $6 million or $10 million project because if we're spending $15 million a year, spending $5 million in one district or one neighborhood, it gets tough to do that. So that's part of it too, is that we've done what we've done according to the list. We've done what we've done because that's what we could do, and that's what we're able to do. And so now we need to kind of step back a little bit and broaden our look and say, okay, we've been kind of reactive here lately, really since 2009. Let's be a little more proactive and let's go out and investigate and shake the trees and see where the problems are and put a number on those. And then we have to decide how to prioritize the fixing of those.
So
Yes, ma'am.
I served on the original
Yes, you did.
stormwater committee when the consent decree came down from EPA. And all this development has come subsequent to that. So do we need to slow down this development? Because I'm wondering, how are we allowing the development to dictate what we do as opposed to us getting this done? Because EPA told us 10, 12 years ago what we needed to do in order to address this problem. And apparently we did not do it in the manner in which they suggested that we done.
From the EPA standpoint, we feel we are. From the EPA standpoint, it's a matter of what are our regulations that we're putting out there. And we've initiated new regulations on infill development and on developments to a very small level. So as far as new development coming in and being permitted and being done properly in EPA's minds, we've got that covered. But what we don't have covered is if a developer comes into the area and needs to make a contribution, how do we legally take that contribution and what do we take that contribution for if we don't have a plan established in that neighborhood? So we feel like we're okay as far as the EPA goes, but as far as just getting a system in place and trying to, and you're right, we don't have the ability right now to partner with developers as they come in because I could spend my entire budget every year just on that, and that would leave existing problems that we know about. We'd leave those untouched. So it's a matter of how do we do some of everything and not negate or not neglect anything.
So just, okay, excuse me.
So, and I'll try to condense this for the sake of time, but so what you see represented in that report, because of the difference in service request need versus what's been done, is actually a little misleading because it seems like it's a lot in terms of volume, but you're talking about a place where that number represents about a third of the need. That's just backlog. That's what was known. That's not what's currently being known, talked about, discussed. Those are reactionary things to what's taking place. Because of the fact that we're leaving out certain pieces in the conversation, that flood mitigation and storms, we're going to spend tens of millions of dollars reacting to those things and never actually addressing some of the issues that are created or exasperated from those storms and those floods. We've already got tens of millions of dollars in property loss and now increasing the amount of loss of life. When this conversation started in 2009, some of these things were discussed then. And so it brings about a different set of questions. The focus is not specifically on or trying to leave out the rest of the county, But what we're taking into account is, and you guys have all mentioned development, the majority of the work that's being done on infrastructure is being done by developers and not by the city. You've got tens of millions of dollars being spent throughout the county because of growth. Stormwater, through 12 meetings in the last 2 years, has flat out said, we heat map. We do work where activity is taking place, not in advance of what's going to be needed. And so when you're talking about T2 and T3, the majority of it has turn-of-the-century infrastructure that's beyond or woefully outdated, or it's non-existent at all. My rural outliers are 70% still on septic and propane in 2021. So we're talking about a massive difference. Also, just in terms of land size, it's one of the things that I've talked about since coming in is we're comparing apples to apples in most instances, but I use the analogy of me starting over. I have an adult child and I have a young child. If I feed my adult child what I feed my young child, that's not really going to work. The land mass that T2 and T3 in districts like 1 and 3 represent is more than a quarter of the county itself. Anybody recently take a look at the map and see District 1, I'm 3 to 8 times bigger than every other council district. And the majority of that has no infrastructure or outdated infrastructure. And so that's where the conversation originated, because the increase in property damage, flood damage, storm damage, things of that nature, it's just becoming an exponential thing. And these are issues that we've talked about since 2009, pre-flood. Those conversations stepped up even further. And so what I'd like to do is ask a couple of questions, but for the sake of time, I want if there's something you wanted to respond to, allow her to do that, and we move the substitute, and then we circle back while I've got Mr. Palco. Chair?
Any other questions on these substitutes?
I guess my concern is that I'm not necessarily against the substitute, but I'm concerned about us addressing those things that need to be addressed now. And I realize the development problem and what's going on. But I mean, I'm just speaking of a building that I was in for 20 years, and we had sewage issues in that building. The building is now torn down, and they're getting ready to build more on that particular location. And there have been a number of developments around that area. So I know that we're headed for disaster. And we got to address it. So I think that if we pass the substitute, then we're going to give the focus to the substitute and everything subsequent to that, and not really address the root of the problem.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree, and I understand what your concern is, but if I'm hearing the administration correctly, these are not mutually exclusive. I can tell you my district, I talked to a lady the other day, she had sewage come up in her house. My sense is truly that stormwater has got more than they can say grace over, and they're doing their very best to catch up. It's somewhat like the sidewalk problem. So many of these developments were built, and the infrastructure at the time was great. It's not so great anymore. I've got creeks growed over. 7 Mile Creek looked like a lake. It looked like the Mississippi River on the 28th of March. So there's lots of work to be done, and I think I heard him say, look, we're doing it. We're getting out there doing work. They're doing work on a little piece of street in my neighborhood right now. That doesn't exclude also looking forward and seeing what else might need to change in the priorities, for whatever that's worth. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll just add to that. I understand and agree with you that we do need to address the current issues. I think that's separate from what this master plan is doing, because this master plan is more forward thinking, and I think we need to do both at the same time. So to your point, I think there was $20 million allocated at the end of last year for stormwater mitigation and flooding projects in District 1. Is that right?
Well, no, we did 2, but there's 20 in this budget.
Oh, in this budget, okay.
That the mayor specifically has spoken to, that said was to go toward drains, ditches, culverts, inlets. And so hopefully that money can be allocated through this budget process to go to specifically making sure those things are done. Stormwater can identify those things that are on need right now. And you heard Mr. Palco mention the 6 years of data that they have right now, right? So in terms of the master plan, and that's one of the things I was going to circle back to, the master plan should be very simple, shouldn't take a lot of time to study. We should be able to do this almost immediately simply because they could rapidly put together that 6 years of data, but every year we get an annual report. What has been done, what came up, what it cost, everything. And so they've got the data now to put together a master plan pretty quick. So I don't think it'll take that long for them to study. This extends the date to give them more time to study, but I think they'll come back much faster than, you know, we're probably anticipating. But it's best to have some leeway and cushion for them to be able to operate and effectively get the data that they need to get together.
Thank you, Chair. I just, I want to go back to, I am not an at-large council member. The people of District 7 elected me, and I know the problems that they're going through, and I know that they wish it would have been preventable. Stormwater, I'm on the phone with John Honeysucker 4 or 5 times a day, it seems like, but it's definitely every day of the week about something that's going on in the district. I'd like to say that one of the things that I like about the substitute is that it's not exclusive to District 1 or District 3. It's about the T2 and the T3 transects and those particular portions of those throughout the entire county. We've got 8,500 jobs coming here by 2031 just with one company that's moving here. That's going to create significant density growth. And if we don't get out in front of this, we're going to have environmental issues. So I think that there's not a commitment as far as spending money with this. It's going to gather information, and I think it just makes sense. The more information we can gather, the more we can adapt and adjust to make sure we're out in front of this stuff so we don't end up with the issues that many of us have throughout the city. Thank you, Chair.
I appreciate that, but we already got environmental issues. It already exists, is what I'm saying. I appreciate what you're saying, and I want to see all of this work for all of Nashville. But had we addressed those issues when they came up years ago, because I'm telling you, I was on a committee long before, and the stormwater issue we had on Jefferson Street, that we now have a park, that's because we continuously fought it. So I'm just saying that I don't want all of it to be overshadowed because of what we're trying to do now and beyond, and forget about what other council members tried to do prior to us getting here.
And Councilmember Hurd, I think you just made my point respectfully. I think that's the thing is we didn't do this before. And I appreciate that in the more rural areas of the county, we're going to be looking forward and hopefully spending money to address what's going wrong, because there are lots of wrongs that need to be righted. But this gives us the opportunity, I believe, it's going to become more urban in this county, everywhere. And so what can we do to get out in front of this? And I think this gives us the opportunity to be more forward thinking, looking to the future, while also doing all that we can to take care of the issues that we've got that should have been prevented in the past. I think that's what you were saying, is that we've got all these issues now, and so now we're doing this. And this will help us get in front of more, is I think what you were saying.
I think we've all been heard. I appreciate all the pluses and minuses and concerns. All those, we're going to vote on the substitute now. All those in favor, vote saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Okay, 9 in favor, 0 against for the substitute. Anybody not voting? No, not voting. On the bill now, as substituted. Motion. We have a motion. Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, vote saying aye. Aye. Those against? 9-0-0. Okay. We have bill number 2021-727, Roberts, Toombs, Murphy, and Nash. There is a proposed amendment on this one, which is just housekeeping. Since I'm on this, I'll go ahead and make the motion to defer one meeting No, I'm sorry, it's, move the amendment,
Second.
which is just housekeeping, change it from avenue to drive or something to that nature. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of saying aye on the amendment?
Aye.
Is the, 9 in favor, 0 against? Any against? And now on the bill as amended, any discussion? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
No,
I would move to defer one meeting.
we don't need deferral.
I
That
would
was-
like to defer
Oh.
one meeting because this is property that I think could be used for the Barnes Fund and it hasn't been looked at. And so in budget, I asked if we could defer it one meeting.
Okay.
And that was agreed to.
There is a, deferred by rule, one meeting?
Great.
Deferred by, happy with deferred by rule?
It won't be deferred by rule in this case. You'll need to vote.
Oh, all right, we have to vote for deferral if we want to defer. Any further discussion? All those in favor of deferring?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. 9-0-0. Defer one meeting. Okay. Thank you for helping us with the rules. All righty. And then we also have Bill 2021-728, Rutherford Murphy National Connell, renames a portion of Blake Drive from Sunnywood Drive to the dead end
We
of
did that on consent.
Sweet Oak Court. Oh, that's right. Take that back.
We're on
On consent.
729.
Never mind. Look at, we're done.
We gotta do 729.
7:29, and we're not done. 7:29.
Evans Murphy, Nashville, Connell.
Abandons, I've got it on consent, but I might have missed it. Look, we can go over it. Evans Murphy National Connell abandons portion of Forest Ridge Drive right-of-way and easement. Council Lady Evans,
To move approval, please.
move it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, vote saying aye.
Aye.
Those against? 9-0-0. Thank you.